I wanted to begin today with a few questions I was recently asked on a history quiz. Question number 1, name the 3 branches of government and their distinct functions. Question number 2, define the rule of law. Question number 3, who wrote the Federalist Papers? And the bonus question, name as many Kardashians as possible. Don't worry, if you thought every question except the last one was difficult, you're not alone. If you can answer all of the questions, consider yourself lucky to not be in the majority. All of these questions, except the bonus, are examples of those asked on the U.S. citizenship test that all immigrants are expected to take and pass in order to become U.S. citizens. A study at Xavier University in Ohio found that 1 in 3 native-born Americans fail the civics portion of this naturalization test. Yet 97% of immigrants applying for citizenship pass. As for the last question about the Kardashians, a self-controlled study conducted by civil rights attorney Lisa Bloom found that every single participant she surveyed, which were college students, could name at least one of the Kardashians. Most could name the 3 sisters, Kim, Khloe, and Kourtney. This data suggests that a great disparity exists between what Americans think they should know and what Americans need to know. Lisa Bloom said it best when she wrote, "Our best and brightest are able to correctly identify more Kardashians than wars were in. They could detail for me the problems in celebrities' personal lives, but not those in their own communities or country. They know more about reality shows than reality." My name is Leah Warren, and I'm here today to discuss about why historical indifference in America will only set us up for failure in the future, and also about an idea I had when I was 10 to create a better future. Unlike most 10-year-olds you may know, I didn't know all the answers to the questions I asked at the beginning, and it wasn't because I was preparing for a test. I was actually fascinated with history as a child. I know, kind of crazy, right? I spent most of my free time researching Revolutionary War battles in the library, memorizing Patrick Henry's "Give me liberty" or "Give me death" speech, and even named my first baby doll after James Madison, the father of the Constitution. My affinity for history was primarily encouraged by my dad, a circuit court judge in Oakland County and a history major in college. His passion for America fueled my own. Through understanding our nation's history, my dad always reminds me how important our nation's history is in determining who we are as a people. He reminds me that my heritage as an American has just as much impact on who I am as my race, gender, or religion. One day at lunch, my dad and I were discussing our frustration over newspaper ads for Memorial Day sales that would be occurring in the next few days. Now, we weren't upset that mattresses were only 30% off instead of 50%. We were upset about the entire idea of having sales on a national holiday, when people should be more focused on remembering those who fought and paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. We were upset that Americans valued sales and days off of school more than the principles that that holiday was celebrating. Then, by some stroke of genius or craziness, we came up with an idea. We wanted to create our own civic holiday, and we would call it Patriot Week. Looking back on this day at lunch, I'm still in the awe at the dedication we had to our small, crazy idea, and how our determination to make it work turned Patriot Week into the organization and holiday that we have today. As I'm sure many of you know, there's a big difference between having an idea and making it a reality. During those following months, my dad and I created a framework for Patriot Week, carefully detailing what principles, people, holiday speeches, and flags would be celebrated each day. Borrowing ideas from Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, we created a 7-day holiday, with each day dedicated to one of the 7 founding first principles from the Declaration of Independence. Then we realized that in order for a new holiday to work, people had to know about it so they could celebrate it. We found the perfect week for our holiday. Patriot Week would begin on 9/11, the anniversary of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and end on 9/17, the anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. We introduced our idea to everyone we met, including family members, friends, lawyers, judges, teachers, and school administrators. 6 years later, Patriot Week has been celebrated in over 10 states across the country and has state proclamations or resolutions in 4 of those states. Patriot Week has been brought to classrooms, community groups, festivals, parades, senior centers, libraries, museums, colleges, a public access television show, and now TEDx. Our idea got off the ground for 3 main reasons. First, we made sure to make and utilize relationships we had with people in positions of power. We got to know governors, state representatives, and school officials, working with them to bring our idea to the greater public. Second, Patriot Week is a grassroots organization, meaning people at the local level help spread Patriot Week by organizing their own community-organized events. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we realized that Patriot Week could work because we aren't the only ones who care very deeply about renewing the American spirit and dedicating ourselves to comprehending and appreciating American history and civics. The vast majority of Americans do too. When it comes to our civic knowledge and understanding our nation's history, ignorance is definitely not bliss. Everyone from the President of the United States and the members of Congress to those of us who are unemployed, choose not to vote, or don't have the ability to vote yet, need to understand more about the country that we live in. George Santayana once famously wrote, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." There are two main reasons why, as a nation, we need to make a better effort to remember our history and civics. The first is repeating past mistakes. If we cannot remember our past, especially our past mistakes, we are condemned to repeat those same mistakes over and over again, creating a catastrophic future for America. Consider, for example, a timeline of recessions in the United States. If you were to look at them all at once, it's very evident that many of the key economic depressions in America were caused by the same things as the ones only a few decades beforehand. It's easy to put a Band-Aid on the problem and leave it to heal on its own, but if you forget why you needed the Band-Aid in the first place, it's likely you're going to get cut again. The second reason to remember the past is because history is so vital to our understanding as human beings. Through understanding our past, Americans can grasp why our country is here in the first place, and it prompts us to never take our freedoms for granted. In the 240 years since we declared independence, millions of Americans have fought and paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Because we are so blessed to have these freedoms and many others, it's easy to take them for granted. But we cannot be ignorant of the privileges we enjoy as Americans when so many people across the globe don't have the right to have their opinions heard, fear for their lives because of who they choose to worship, or live under an oppressive government. In the end, our responsibility to retain our nation's history and civics is not something that can be forced on us by our history teachers. Civic knowledge isn't passed down through the gene pool, and it isn't something that can be purged from the mind after taking a test. Through Patriot Week, we remind Americans that we need to stop, step back, and remember what makes America unique and exceptional. We remind Americans to always keep in mind the first principles from the Declaration of Independence, the patriots that brought those principles to life, the key documents and speeches that highlight our past, and the flags that serve as symbols of freedom. Nevertheless, we cannot only remember the good, the bad cannot be forgotten as well. We must remember the Japanese internment camps, the Trail of Tears, slavery, Jim Crow laws, our role as a bystander during the Rwandan genocide, the Kent College shooting, the Sandy Hook shooting, the Flint water crisis. We must remember the good, the bad, and the ugly. Confucius once simply wrote, "Study the past if you would define the future." We have a responsibility to our founders, our people, and our children to never let the events of history remain lost in the endless pages of musty textbooks. To plan for the future, we must remember the past. As I'm sure we've all heard before, America's future is truly in our hands. Our generation has been left with the overwhelming task of fixing the problems left for us by our parents and the generations before them. To solve these problems, we must drive forward, be innovative, creative, and impactful. But we need to make sure we stop, look in the rearview mirror, and go forward into the past. Thank you.